The veil lifted, and Colt Mercer's hand froze mid-reach. Wrong eyes, wrong face, wrong woman. The bride standing at the altar wasn't Evelyn Whitmore, the polished cattleman's daughter he'd agreed to marry to save both their ranches from railroad seizure. This woman was younger, quieter, trembling, but her jaw was set like iron. "My sister couldn't go through with it," she whispered, as the preacher cleared his throat. "So I took her place." The chapel went silent. Colt's pulse hammered. He'd been deceived, humiliated, but something in her eyes, fierce and terrified all at once, stopped him from walking away. Before we begin, if you love stories of courage, forbidden choices, and love that defies expectations, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Stay with me until the very end of this story, and comment below with the city you're watching from so I can see how far Clara's journey has traveled. The preacher's voice cut through the silence like a knife. "Do you, Colt Mercer, take this woman—" "Wait." Colt's voice was low, controlled, but the entire chapel heard it. His eyes never left hers. "What's your name?" She swallowed. Clara Whitmore." "The younger sister?" "Yes." "And where exactly is Evelyn?" Clara's hand shook, but she didn't look away. "Gone. She left last night." A murmur rippled through the small crowd. Colt heard Thomas Whitmore shift in the front pew, heard the scrape of boots on wooden floors as ranch hands exchanged glances. Someone coughed. Someone else whispered. Colt's jaw tightened. 3 months on a cattle drive. 3 months of drought, dust, and near-starvation wages just to keep his land from going under. 3 months thinking about this arrangement, this cold, practical marriage that would merge Whitmore land with his own and keep the railroad from swallowing them both whole. He'd convinced himself he could live with a woman he didn't love, convinced himself that survival mattered more than pride. And now this. "You knew," he said quietly. "When you walked down that aisle, you knew I was expecting someone else." "Yes, and you did it anyway." Clara lifted her chin. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but every word landed solid. "If I didn't, my father's ranch would be foreclosed by the end of the month. 23 families would lose their homes. Cattle would be sold for nothing. Everything my mother built before she died, gone. That's not my problem. It is now. The contract was signed. Whitmore land merges with Mercer land upon marriage. Doesn't matter which daughter." Colt's eyes narrowed. "You sound like a lawyer." "I sound like someone who reads contracts." Behind him, someone laughed, a short, bitter sound. Colt didn't turn. He knew that laugh. Malcolm Crowley, railroad land agent, the man who'd been circling Silver Creek ranches like a vulture for 6 months, offering buyouts that weren't really offers. Crowley's voice drifted forward, smooth and amused. "Well, Mercer, looks like you got yourself a bait and switch. Might want to think hard before you finish those vows." Colt's hand moved to his belt, old habit, reaching for a gun that wasn't there. Not in church, not on his wedding day. He forced his hand still. The preacher cleared his throat again. "Mr. Mercer, we can postpone—" "No." Clara's voice startled them both. She turned to the preacher, then back to Colt. "No postponement. The contract states the wedding happens today or the deal is void. If you walk away now, both ranches collapse. That's what the railroad wants. That's what Crowley's been waiting for." Colt stared at her, really looked at her. She was younger than Evelyn, maybe 22, 23. Simpler dress, no jewelry, hands that weren't soft. Calluses on her palms he could see even from where he stood. Her dark hair was pinned back plain, no fancy curls. But her eyes, God, her eyes were clear, steady. Scared, yes, but not backing down. "Why you?" he asked. "Because no one else would." "Your father?" "My father's been drinking himself sick since my mother died 2 years ago. He signs things, agrees to things, but he doesn't run the ranch anymore. I do." Another murmur from the crowd, louder this time. Thomas Whitmore stood abruptly. "Clara, that's enough." She didn't even glance at him. "It's true, and you know it." "You will not disgrace this family." "I'm saving this family." Clara's voice cracked, just slightly, but she steadied it. "You want to talk about disgrace? Evelyn ran off with a railroad surveyor. She chose herself. I'm choosing us." Silence again, heavier now. Colt felt the weight of every eye in that chapel, felt the town's judgment pressing down, felt Crowley's amusement like a blade against his spine. If he walked away, he'd be the fool who got tricked. If he stayed, he'd be the fool who accepted it. But if he walked away, everything collapsed. He looked at Clara one more time. "You understand what you're asking." "I understand what I'm offering." "A marriage in name only." Her eyes flickered. Something passed through them, hurt maybe, or relief. Hard to tell. "If that's what you want." "What I want," Colt said slowly, "doesn't matter anymore, does it?" She hesitated, then, quietly, "No, I suppose it doesn't." He turned to the preacher. "Finish it." The preacher blinked. "Are you certain?" "Finish it." The vows came fast, mechanical. Clara's voice was steady. Colt's was flat. When the preacher said, "You may kiss the bride," Colt just nodded once and turned toward the door. Clara followed. Outside, the wind had picked up. Dust swirled across the churchyard. Horses stamped and tossed their heads. Voices rose, some congratulatory, some 100. Voices rose, some congratulatory, some pitying, some outright hostile. Colt ignored them all. He untied Rust and swung into the saddle without looking back. "Where are you going?" Clara's voice cut through the wind. "Home." "Our home is—" "My home." He looked down at her. "You want to live there? That's the contract. But don't pretend this is something it's not." Her face went pale, but she didn't flinch. "I never pretended anything." "Didn't you?" She stepped closer. Close enough he could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the nights she probably didn't sleep planning this. "I told you the truth the second the veil came off. I could have waited, could have let you find out later, after it was too late to annul. But I didn't. So don't you dare call me a liar." Colt's chest tightened. She was right. She'd given him the choice, slim as it was, the moment she could. He didn't apologize. Couldn't. But he nodded toward the wagon hitched nearby. "That yours?" "Yes." "Follow me. Stay close. Road's not safe after dark." Clara's eyes narrowed. "I've driven that road 100 times." "Not as my wife you haven't. Everything's different now." He didn't wait for her response, just spurred Rust forward and let the gelding carry him out of town. The ride to Mercer Ranch took an hour. Colt didn't look back, didn't check if Clara was following. He heard the wagon wheels, heard the creak of the axle, heard her voice once, sharp and low, telling the horses to steady. She knew how to drive. He'd give her that. By the time they reached the ranch, the sun was sinking low, painting the plains in shades of copper and blood. The house sat alone on a rise, weathered wood, stone chimney, shutters that needed paint. Barn behind it, corrals beyond that. Cattle spread out across the valley like scattered shadows. Colt dismounted and led Russ to the barn without a word. Clara pulled the wagon to a stop near the porch. She sat there for a moment, hands still on the reins, staring at the house. Then she climbed down, slow and careful, and started unhitching the horses. Colt watched from the barn door. She moved efficiently. No wasted motion. When one of the horses tossed its head, she gentled it with a hand on its neck, murmuring something he couldn't hear. He turned away and unsaddled Rust, fingers working the buckles by muscle memory. The bay huffed and leaned into the brush when Colt ran it over his coat. Simple. Familiar. The only thing today that made sense. "Where do you want me to put them?" Colt looked up. Clara stood in the barn doorway, leading both wagon horses. Her dress was dusty, hair coming loose from its pins. "Stalls on the left," he said. "Feeds in the bin, water troughs full." She nodded and led the horses past him. Didn't ask for help. Didn't hesitate. Colt finished with Rust and stepped outside. The wind had died down. Evening crickets were starting their song. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called. Clara emerged from the barn, wiping her hands on her skirt. She looked at the house, then at him. "Is there a room?" "Upstairs. Second door. Sheets are clean." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "You were expecting—" "I was expecting a wife. Doesn't matter which one." The words came out harsher than he meant. He saw her flinch, just barely. "There's bread and cheese in the kitchen. Coffee's probably cold by now. I'll be in the barn." "You're not coming inside?" "Got work to do." "It's almost dark." "I see better in the dark." Clara's mouth tightened. For a second, he thought she might argue. But she just nodded, turned, and walked toward the house. Her shoulders were straight, head up. She didn't look back. Colt watched until she disappeared inside. Then he returned to the barn, lit a lantern, and sat down on a hay bale. He didn't have work to do. He just couldn't stand to be in that house with her. Not yet. Not when every instinct told him he'd been played, even if she claimed otherwise. Not when he could still hear Crowley's laughter echoing in his skull. The railroad agent had been at the wedding for a reason. Watching. Waiting. Making sure Colt knew how close to the edge they all were. And now Colt had tied himself to a woman he didn't know. A woman who'd stepped into her sister's place like it was nothing. A woman who apparently ran an entire ranch while her father drank himself stupid. He should have walked away. Should have let the railroad take everything. Should have started over somewhere else. But he didn't. And he didn't know if that made him smart or the biggest fool in Montana territory. Inside the house, Clara stood in the kitchen, hands braced against the table. Her legs were shaking. Had been shaking since the chapel. Since Colt's voice had cut through the silence with that single word. Wait. She'd prepared for anger, for rejection, for him to walk away and leave her standing there in front of everyone. She hadn't prepared for him to say, yes. The bread sat on the counter, wrapped in cloth, the cheese beside it. She wasn't hungry. Hadn't been hungry in days. But she forced herself to cut a slice of each, forced herself to eat. She'd need her strength. Tomorrow would be worse than today. The house was quiet. Too quiet. She could hear the wind outside, hear the cattle lowing in the distance, hear the faint creak of the barn door. She wondered if Colt was really working or just avoiding her. Probably avoiding her. She didn't blame him. Clara finished eating, washed the knife, and climbed the stairs. The second door opened onto a small room. Bed, dresser, window overlooking the valley. Simple. Clean. The bed was made with military precision. She sat on the edge and unlaced her boots. Her feet ached. Her back ached. Everything ached. The dress came off next. She folded it carefully and laid it on the dresser. Underneath, she wore a plain cotton shift. No corset, no petticoats. She'd stopped wearing those a year ago, when she started doing ranch work in earnest. She climbed into bed and pulled the quilt up to her chin. And then, finally, she let herself cry. Not loud, not desperate. Just quiet tears that slid down her temples and disappeared into the pillow. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. Married a man who looked at her like she was a problem to solve. Tied herself to someone who might never forgive her for not being Evelyn. But 23 families still had their homes tonight. The cattle were still grazing. Her father was still breathing. And maybe that was enough. Colt didn't go inside until well past midnight. The house was dark, except for a single candle burning low in the kitchen window. Clara must have left it for him. He blew it out, climbed the stairs, and paused outside the second door. Listened. Heard nothing. Either she was asleep or pretending to be. He moved to the room at the end of the hall, his room, and shut the door behind him. Sat on the bed without undressing, stared at the wall, and tried not to think about the fact that his wife, was sleeping 20 feet away. A woman he'd known for less than 6 hours. A woman who'd looked him in the eye and told him the truth, even when lying would have been easier. A woman who'd called him out in front of the whole town without flinching. He didn't know what to do with that. Didn't know what to do with her. So he did the only thing he could. He lay back, closed his eyes, and waited for morning. Tomorrow, he'd figure out how to survive a marriage he never wanted with a woman he never chose. Tonight, he just needed to make it through the dark. Morning came hard and fast. Colt woke to the sound of horses moving in the corral and sat up, disoriented. Someone was working the animals. He checked the window, still dark, barely dawn breaking over the ridge. He pulled on his boots and headed downstairs. The kitchen smelled like coffee. Fresh coffee. A pot sat on the stove, steam rising. Bread on the counter, sliced. Bacon in the pan, still warm. Clara wasn't there. He poured himself a cup and walked to the door, stepped onto the porch. She was in the corral with his horses, all 6 of them, moving between them like she'd done it 1,000 times, checking hooves, running her hands along their legs, murmuring words he couldn't make out. She'd changed into work clothes, men's trousers, boots, a shirt that had seen better days. Her hair was braided tight down her back. Colt walked toward the fence. "What are you doing?" She didn't startle, didn't even look up. Euron's got a stone bruise on his left foreleg. The paint's shoes need resetting, and the mare with the white blaze is favoring her right hind. Looks like she stepped wrong yesterday. "I know my own horses." "Then you know they need tending." He leaned against the rail. "I didn't ask you to do this." "You didn't ask me to do anything." She finally glanced at him. "But I'm here, and I'm not going to sit in that house pretending I don't know how to work." "This isn't Whitmore Ranch." "No, it's better stock. Your geldings are strong, good bone structure, but you're running them too hard without enough recovery time. They'll break down by winter if you keep this pace." Colt's jaw tightened. "You've been here 12 hours, and you're already telling me how to run my ranch?" Clara straightened, wiping her hands on her trousers. "I'm telling you what I see. You want me to shut up and play house? Say so. But don't waste what I can do just because you're angry I'm not my sister." The words hit like a fist. Colt pushed off the fence. "I'm not." "Yes, you are." She walked past him toward the barn. "And I don't blame you. But we're married now, legally bound. So you can hate me quietly or hate me loud, but either way, those horses need care." She disappeared inside. Colt stood there, coffee cooling in his hand, trying to decide if he wanted to follow her or walk in the opposite direction and keep walking. Before he could choose, hoofbeats sounded from the road. Multiple riders. Coming fast. He set the cup on the fence post and turned. 5 men crested the hill. Ranch hands, but not his. These were Whitmore men. He recognized 2 of them, Garrett and Luis, both senior hands. The others were younger, harder looking. They reined up in a cloud of dust. Garrett spoke first. "We're here for Clara." Colt crossed his arms. "She's not going anywhere." "That's not your call." "It is now. She's my wife." "She's Thomas Whitmore's daughter." Garrett's voice was flat, controlled. "And he wants her home." "Too late for that." "You don't understand." "I understand plenty." Colt stepped forward. "Contract was signed. Marriage is legal. She stays here." Luis shifted in his saddle. "Mr. Whitmore's not well. He's been drinking hard since the wedding. Says Clara tricked him. Says she had no right." "I had every right." Clara's voice cut through the tension. She stood in the barn doorway, pitchfork in hand. Not threatening, just present. "My father gave me power of attorney 2 months ago, when he couldn't manage the accounts anymore. I signed the contract on behalf of Whitmore Ranch. It's binding." Garrett's expression darkened. "Your sister's back." Silence. Clara's knuckles went white on the pitchfork handle. "What?" "Evelyn came home last night, crying. Says she made a mistake. Says she wants to fix this." "There's nothing to fix." "She's willing to marry Mercer if he annuls." "No." Colt's voice was granite. "No annulment." All eyes turned to him. Garrett leaned forward. "You saying you want to stay married to the girl who deceived you?" "I'm saying the contract's fulfilled. What's done is done." "But if you could have Evelyn instead." "I don't want Evelyn." The words came out before Colt could stop them. He felt Clara's eyes on him, but didn't look at her. "The deal was marriage in exchange for merged land. I got both. We're finished here." Louis spoke up, quieter. "Clara, your father's real sick. Maybe you should come see him, just for a few hours." Clara's expression shifted. Something cracked in her composure. "How sick?" "Doc Harris was there this morning. Says his liver's failing. The drinking. It's caught up." She closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, they were clear but pained. "I'll come. But I'm coming back here tonight." "Clara," Colt started. "He's still my father." She looked at him directly. "And if he's dying, I need to see him, whether he wants me there or not." Colt wanted to argue, wanted to tell her it was a trap, that Whitmore would use her guilt to break the marriage somehow. But the look on her face stopped him. "Take the wagon," he said. "I'll saddle a horse and ride with you." "You don't need to." "Yes, I do." He held her gaze. "You're not going alone." The ride to Whitmore Ranch took 40 minutes. Clara drove the wagon. Colt rode beside her on Rust. The Whitmore hands trailed behind, silent and watchful. Nobody spoke. When they arrived, the main house looked worse than Colt remembered. Paint peeling, shutters hanging crooked. The flower beds Clara's mother had planted were overgrown with weeds. Clara's hands shook as she set the brake. Colt dismounted and reached up to help her down. She hesitated, then took his hand. Her fingers were ice cold. "I'm fine," she said. "I know." "I don't need you to come inside." "I know that too." She almost smiled. Almost. The front door opened before they reached it. Evelyn stood there. She was everything Clara wasn't. Tall, polished, beautiful in a way that turned heads. Her dress was perfect despite the early hour. Hair curled, face composed, but her eyes were red. "Clara," she said softly, "thank God you came." Clara stopped 3 feet from the door. "Where is he?" "Upstairs, sleeping." The doctor gave him something for the pain. Evelyn's gaze shifted to Colt. "Mr. Mercer, I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything." "I do. I ran. I was selfish and cowardly, and You made a choice," Colt said. "That's all. But Clara had to pay for it. Clara made her own choice, too." He looked at his wife. "And she's tougher than you gave her credit for." Something flickered across Evelyn's face. Surprise, maybe. Or shame. Clara moved past her sister into the house. Colt followed. Inside, the decay was more obvious. Dust on the furniture, dishes piled in the kitchen, the smell of whiskey soaked into everything. Clara climbed the stairs without a word. Colt stayed in the parlor with Evelyn. She sat on the settee, hands folded in her lap. "You didn't have to marry her." "Yes, I did. You could have walked away, started over somewhere else." "Could have." Colt leaned against the doorframe. "Didn't." "Why?" He didn't answer right away. Wasn't sure he could. Finally, "Because she stood there when no one else would. That counts for something." Evelyn's eyes filled. "I loved him, the surveyor. I thought we'd run away together, start a new life. But he left me at the train station, took the money I brought, and disappeared." "I'm sorry." "Are you?" "Yeah, I am. Not because I wanted to marry you, but because you got hurt." She wiped her eyes. "Clara always said I was too trusting. I never listened." "She's smarter than people think." "I know." Evelyn stood, walked to the window. She ran this ranch for a year before Father would admit it. Kept the books, negotiated with buyers, stopped the hands from stealing cattle during the drought. And he never thanked her. Just kept drinking and pretending Mother was still alive. Colt said nothing. "When I ran, I thought Clara would just cancel the wedding. I didn't think she'd—" Evelyn's voice broke. "I didn't think she'd sacrifice herself." "She didn't sacrifice herself. She chose duty. It's the same thing." "No," Colt said quietly. "It's not." Footsteps on the stairs. Clara descended, face pale, but dry-eyed. "He's awake. Wants to see you, Evelyn." Evelyn hurried past her. Clara stood in the hallway, arms wrapped around herself. Colt waited. "He didn't recognize me at first," she said. "Thought I was my mother. Started apologizing. Crying. I've never seen him cry." "What did you say?" "Nothing. What could I say?" She looked at Colt. "He's dying. The doctor says maybe a week. Maybe less." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. He chose the bottle over everything else. Over me, over Evelyn, over the ranch." Her voice hardened. "I can't mourn someone who stopped being my father years ago." "Clara, we should go." She headed for the door. "I've seen enough." Colt caught her arm. "Wait. You're allowed to feel something." "I do feel something. I feel tired." She pulled free, but gently. "And I feel relieved that when he dies, I won't have to pretend anymore." She walked out. Colt followed her to the wagon. She climbed up without help this time, took the reins, and stared straight ahead. "You want to drive?" he asked. "Yes." "Then drive." She did. Fast. Too fast. The wagon bounced over ruts and stones. Colt rode beside her, keeping pace. When they were halfway home, she finally slowed. "I shouldn't have said that," she said. "About my father." "Why not? It's true." "It's cruel." "Truth usually is." She glanced at him. You didn't have to come with me. Yes, I did. Why? Colt considered lying, settled for honesty. Because if I let you go alone and something happened, I'd regret it. You barely know me. I know enough. Clara's throat worked. Evelyn's beautiful. Yeah. She's everything a man would want. Maybe. You could still have her. If you really wanted to annul, I don't. Colt reined Rust closer to the wagon. And I need you to stop asking me that. Why? Because every time you ask, it sounds like you're hoping I'll say yes. He held her gaze. Are you? Clara's breath caught. No. Then stop giving me the option. They rode the rest of the way in silence. When they reached Mercer Ranch, the sun was high. Colt unsaddled Rust, while Clara unhitched the wagon horses. They worked side by side, not speaking, moving in a rhythm that felt almost natural. Until Colt saw the fence. He froze, staring at the northern pasture. Hell. Clara looked up. What? Fence is cut. 3 lines. Clean cuts, not breaks. She followed his gaze. That's deliberate. Yeah. Colt's jaw set. And the cattle are gone. They both ran. The north pasture was empty. 20 head of cattle, prime stock, just gone. Fence cut in 3 places, wide enough to drive the herd through. Clara knelt by one of the cut wires. These are fresh. Happened this morning while we were at Whitmore Ranch. Someone knew we'd be gone. The hands, they would have talked. Colt scanned the horizon. No dust, no movement. Whoever took the cattle had hours head start. We need to track them. I'll get the horses. No, you stay here. Clara stood. Excuse me? If someone's targeting this ranch, I'm not leaving you alone. I can handle myself. I don't doubt that, but I'm not risking you. You don't get to decide. Yes, I do. Colt's voice went cold. You're my wife. That means you're a target now, too. Anyone who wants to hurt me can hurt you, and I'm not giving them that chance. Clara's eyes flashed. So I'm property now? You're family. There's a difference. The word hung between them. Family. Clara's expression shifted, softened just slightly. Then we track them together. Clara, together. Or I follow you anyway and we waste time arguing. Colt wanted to refuse, wanted to lock her in the house and ride out alone. But he saw the set of her jaw, the steel in her spine, and knew she meant every word. Fine, but you do exactly what I say. If it makes sense. That's not how this works. Then you better make sense. She headed for the barn. I'll saddle the horses. You get the rifles. They picked up the trail within an hour. Hoofprints, cattle tracks, leading northeast toward the railroad camps. Colt's stomach sank. Crowley. You think the railroad took them? I think someone who wants me desperate enough to sell took them. He urged Rust faster. And Crowley's been waiting for me to break since the day I turned down his first offer. The tracks led through a narrow canyon. Colt slowed, every instinct screaming. Too quiet. Too easy. Something's wrong, he said. Clara pulled her horse beside his. What? Trail's too clear, like they wanted us to follow. A trap? Before he could answer, gunfire cracked from the ridge above. Colt yanked Clara off her horse as bullets sprayed the ground where they'd been standing. They hit the dirt hard, scrambling for cover behind a boulder. You hit? Colt shouted. No, you? No. More shots, closer this time. Colt pulled his rifle and returned fire, aiming for muzzle flash on the ridge. Clara did the same, her shots precise and controlled. How many? She asked. 3, maybe 4. Can we make it back to the horses? Not without getting shot. A voice called down from above. Mercer, leave the cattle and go home. This is your only warning. Colt didn't recognize the voice. Didn't matter. He fired again. Show yourself. Laughter echoed off the rocks. You got yourself a wife now, Mercer. She gonna take a bullet for you? Clara's face went white, then red with fury. She stood up. Colt tried to pull her back down, but she shook him off and fired 3 rapid shots at the ridge. A man screamed. Then silence. After a long moment, hoofbeats retreated. Fast. Panicked. Clara sat back down, breathing hard. Her hands were shaking now. Colt stared at her. Did you just... I don't know. Maybe. She looked at him, eyes wide. I wasn't trying to kill anyone. I just wanted them to stop. Where'd you learn to shoot like that? My mother. She said a woman on the frontier needed to protect herself. Clara's voice cracked. I've never aimed at a person before. Colt reached over and took her hand, squeezed once. You did good. I shot someone. You defended us. That's different. Is it? He didn't answer, just held her hand until the shaking stopped. Then they mounted their horses and rode back to the ranch, leaving the cattle behind. Because now, Colt understood, this wasn't about livestock. It was about breaking him. And the war had only just begun. They rode back in silence, but it wasn't the cold silence from before. This was different, heavier, the kind that came after gunfire and blood. When they reached the ranch, Colt dismounted first and reached for Clara's reins. She didn't let go. I need to check the rest of the fence lines, she said. Not alone. Then come with me. Clara, you just shot at men who were trying to kill us. You're allowed to stop. And do what? Her voice was steady, but her eyes weren't. Sit in that house and wait for them to come back? Wait for the next fence to get cut? The next fire? Fire? Colt's blood went cold. What fire? Clara pointed toward the southern ridge. Smoke, thin and gray, rising against the sky. They both ran. The hay barn was burning. Not the main barn, the smaller one where they stored winter feed. Flames ate through the dry wood like it was paper. Black smoke poured into the air. Water! Clara shouted, already running toward the well. Colt grabbed buckets and followed. They worked in tandem, filling, throwing, running back. The fire fought them. Every bucket seemed to do nothing. The heat drove them back. It's too far gone, Colt said, coughing. We have to let it burn. That's 3 months of feed. I know. We'll lose half the herd by spring without it. I know. He caught her arm as she tried to run forward with another bucket. Clara, stop. You can't save it. She jerked free, but she didn't move forward. Just stood there, bucket in hand, watching the barn collapse. Watching their winter provisions turn to ash. They were here, she said quietly. While we were chasing the cattle, they were here, setting fires. Colt's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Yeah. This was coordinated. Yeah. Someone inside helped them. Someone who knew we'd both be gone. Colt didn't want to believe it. But she was right. The timing was too perfect. The attacks too calculated. The Whitmore hands. They knew we were arriving out. Garrett, Clara said. He asked too many questions. Wanted to know exactly when we'd be back. You think he's working for Crowley? I think someone is. And Garrett's been desperate for money since his wife got sick. Railroad's been offering cash to anyone who'll sabotage the ranches they want. Colt stared at the burning barn. at everything he'd built turning to smoke. We need proof. We need help. Clara set down the bucket. We can't fight this alone. Who's going to help us? Half the town thinks I'm a fool for marrying you. The other half thinks you're a schemer who trapped me. Then we prove them wrong. How? Clara met his eyes. We fight back, together, and we make it so loud they can't ignore us. By nightfall, the barn was ash. Colt stood in the wreckage, boots crunching on charred wood. 3 months of feed, gone. He'd have to buy from neighboring ranches at premium prices or watch his cattle starve. Unless he sold to the railroad. That's what Crowley wanted. Break him down piece by piece until selling was the only option. Clara appeared beside him, 2 plates in hand. You need to eat. Not hungry. I don't care. Eat anyway. She shoved a plate at him. Beans and cornbread. Simple. Probably the last of their supplies. He took it, ate mechanically, tasted nothing. I've been thinking, Clara said. Dangerous. She almost smiled. Almost. The railroad needs right-of-way through this valley. Your land and my father's land are the only obstacles. If they can get both parcels, they control the route. I know that. But if the ranches are merged through marriage, they can't buy just one. They need both of us to sell. Colt looked at her. So, as long as we stay married, we're stronger together than apart. That's why they're trying to break us. If they can force an annulment, they can negotiate separately. Divide and conquer. You've been thinking about this a lot. I've been thinking about nothing else since I put on that wedding dress. Clara set her plate down. Colt, I know you didn't want this marriage. But it's the only thing standing between us and losing everything. You sound like a general planning a war. That's because we're in one. She turned to face him fully. And if we're going to win, you need to stop treating me like a mistake and start treating me like your partner. The words hit him square in the chest. Because she was right. He had been so focused on what he'd lost, the choice, the control, the simple transaction, that he'd missed what he'd gained. Someone who fought. I'm sorry, he said. Clara blinked. What? I'm sorry for making you feel like you have to prove yourself. You already did, the moment you stepped up to that altar. Colt set his own plate down. And you're right, we're stronger together. So from now on, we plan together, fight together. No more treating you like you're fragile. Something shifted in Clara's expression. Relief, gratitude, something deeper he couldn't name. Thank you, she said softly. Before either of them could say more, hoofbeats echoed from the road. Fast, urgent. Colt's hand went to his gun. Clara grabbed the rifle leaning against the fence. A single rider burst into view. Young, maybe 19. One of the Whitmore hands, the quiet one who never said much. He reined up hard, horse lathered and heaving. Miss Clara, you gotta come quick. What happened? It's your father. He's dying. For real this time. Asking for you. Clara's face went pale. When? Now. Doc says maybe an hour, maybe less. The boy's voice cracked. And Miss Evelyn, she's saying things, bad things, about you, about the marriage. She's got half the hands convinced you stole her life. Colt stepped forward. What kind of things? That Clara forced her out. That she manipulated your father into signing papers he didn't understand. That the marriage should be voided because... The boy hesitated. Because what? Clara's voice was ice. Because you used witchcraft or some kind of... I don't believe it, Miss Clara. I swear I don't. But folks are listening and getting riled up and... Witchcraft. Clara's laugh was bitter. Of course. When a woman is smarter than expected, she must be a witch. Colt's blood boiled. Who started this? Don't know for sure, but Mr. Crowley was at Whitmore Ranch this afternoon, talking to Miss Evelyn for a long time. Everything clicked into place. Crowley was weaponizing Evelyn's guilt and grief, turning her into a tool to destroy Clara's reputation. If the town believed Clara was a manipulator, or worse, something unnatural, they'd pressure Colt to annul, pressure the territorial judge to void the contract. "We're going," Colt said. "No," Clara shook her head. "You stay here. Guard the ranch. They might—" "If you think I'm letting you ride into that alone, you're out of your mind." He turned to the boy. "Saddle fresh horses. Fast ones." They made the ride in 30 minutes, pushing the horses hard. The Whitmore ranch house glowed with lamplight. Too many lamps. Too many people. Colt heard the voices before they even dismounted. Angry, accusing, coming from inside. Clara's hands shook as she tied her horse. Colt reached over and steadied them with his own. "Whatever happens in there," he said, "I'm with you." She looked at him. Really looked. "Why?" "Because you're my wife, and I don't let people hurt what's mine." "I'm not property." "No, you're family. I told you that already." He squeezed her hands once. "Now let's go show them what that means." They walked in together. The parlor was packed. Ranch hands, townspeople, even the sheriff stood in the corner, looking uncomfortable. And in the center of it all, Evelyn. Her face was blotchy from crying, but her voice carried clear. "She knew what she was doing," Evelyn said. "Clara always knew. She wanted the ranch, wanted the power, and she used my mistake to take it." "That's a lie," Clara said from the doorway. Every head turned. Evelyn's eyes widened. "Clara?" "That's a lie, and you know it." Clara walked forward, Colt right behind her. "I didn't want any of this. I wanted you to be happy. But you ran. You chose yourself. And someone had to clean up the mess. By stealing my future?" "Your future?" Clara's voice rose. "Your future was with a man who abandoned you at a train station. My future was managing a dying ranch with a drunk father who couldn't remember my name half the time." Gasps rippled through the room. The sheriff stepped forward. "Miss Clara, that's—" "True. Every word." Clara turned to face them all. "My father's upstairs dying because he drank himself to death. My sister ran away with a con man. And I did what I had to do to save 23 families from losing their homes. If that makes me a villain in your eyes, fine. But don't you dare call me a witch." "She's manipulated everyone," Evelyn said, but her voice was weaker now. "Even Colt. He didn't want—" "I chose her." Colt's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Nobody forced me. Nobody tricked me. Clara told me the truth before the vows were finished, and I said yes anyway." Silence. Malcolm Crowley emerged from the shadows near the staircase. Colt hadn't seen him there. The railroad agent smiled. How touching. But the fact remains that the marriage was contracted under false pretenses. The agreement was for Evelyn Whitmore to marry Colt Mercer, not Clara. "The agreement was for a Whitmore daughter," Clara shot back. "I'm a Whitmore daughter. The contract is valid." "The spirit of the agreement—" "The spirit doesn't matter. The law does." Clara pulled a folded paper from her pocket. "I have the original contract right here. Signed by my father, witnessed by Judge Morrison. It says, 'A daughter of Thomas Whitmore,' with no specification of which one." Crowley's smile faltered. "Where did you get that?" "I've had it since the day Father signed it, because unlike you, I actually read what I put my name to." Clara held it up. "And every word here says this marriage is legal and binding." The room erupted. Voices arguing, some supporting Clara, others demanding the judge void it anyway. Colt moved to Clara's side. "We're leaving." "My father." "If he's dying, he won't know the difference between us being here or upstairs, and staying here is dangerous." He glared at the crowd. "Half these people look ready to burn you at the stake." "Let them try." But Clara's voice shook. Evelyn suddenly spoke, quieter now. "Clara, wait." Clara froze. Evelyn crossed the room slowly. Up close, she looked destroyed, hollow. "I'm sorry. I didn't know Crowley would twist things like this. He came to me and said he could help fix everything, get you out of a marriage you didn't want, get me a second chance with Colt. You thought you could undo your choices by destroying mine?" Clara's voice was flat. "You always did think the world revolved around you. That's not fair." "Fair?" Clara's composure finally cracked. "You left me alone with a dying drunk and a failing ranch. You ran away with a man you barely knew. And now you're back, trying to steal the one thing I managed to save. So don't talk to me about fair." Evelyn flinched like she'd been slapped. Colt touched Clara's arm. "We should go." "Not yet," Clara looked at Crowley. "Why are you really here?" "I'm concerned for the community." "You're trying to break up legal contracts so the railroad can seize land. That's fraud." Crowley's expression hardened. "Careful, Mrs. Mercer. Accusing a railroad representative of—" "I'm not accusing. I'm stating facts." Clara stepped closer. "And I have proof. Letters, bills of sale, documents showing the railroad has been buying up land through intimidation and sabotage. I found them in my father's office 3 weeks ago. He was gathering evidence before the drinking got worse." The room went dead silent. Crowley's face darkened. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Clara's smile was sharp. "Want to risk it?" Colt stared at his wife. She'd been planning this, gathering evidence, building a case. While everyone thought she was just a girl playing house, she'd been preparing for war. Crowley took a step forward. "Those documents belong to—" "My father. And now to me, his heir." Clara didn't back down. "Touch me, and everyone here is a witness to assault. Try to take them by force, and I'll have the territorial marshal involved within a week." "You can't prove anything." "Then you have nothing to worry about." Clara turned toward the door. "Colt, we're leaving." He followed without hesitation. They were halfway to their horses when Garrett appeared from the barn, blocking their path. 2 other hands flanked him. "Can't let you leave," Garrett said. Colt's hand went to his gun. "Get out of the way. Not until we get some answers. Like, who really started that fire today?" "You know exactly who started it," Clara said. "The same people who cut our fence. The same people who shot at us. The same people you're working for." Garrett's jaw tightened. "Careful what you say, girl." "I'm not a girl. I'm Mrs. Mercer. And you're fired." "You can't fire me. I work for Whitmore Ranch." "Which is now merged with Mercer Ranch, which means I absolutely can fire you." Clara's voice was steel. "And I am. Effective immediately. You have until morning to clear your things." One of the other hands spoke up. "You're making a mistake." "The mistake was trusting any of you." Clara mounted her horse. "Colt, let's go." But Garrett grabbed her horse's bridle. "I said you're not leaving." Colt drew his gun, fast, aimed at Garrett's chest. "Let go of her horse." "You won't shoot me." "Won't I?" Colt's voice was cold. "You burned my barn, stole my cattle, shot at my wife. Give me one reason I shouldn't put a bullet in you right now." Garrett's face went pale. He released the bridle. They rode away at a gallop, not looking back. Halfway home, Clara finally spoke. "You would have shot him." "Yes." You've never killed anyone. How do you know? She glanced at him. Have you? Colt didn't answer for a long moment. Then, no. But I would have. To protect you. That's insane. Maybe, but it's true. Clara pulled her horse to a stop. Colt did the same. They sat there in the darkness, horses breathing hard, stars brilliant overhead. Those documents, Colt said. The ones you mentioned. Do they really exist? Yes. Where are they? Clara reached into her saddlebag and pulled out a leather folder, handed it to him. I've been carrying them since the wedding. Didn't know when I'd need them, but I knew I would eventually. Colt opened the folder. Even in the dim moonlight, he could see letters, receipts, maps, all documenting Crowley's schemes. It was damning, detailed, perfect. Your father gathered all this? My mother started it, before she died. She didn't trust the railroad. Told father to document everything. He did, for a while. Then he started drinking and forgot about it. I found the files 6 months ago and kept adding to them. You've been building a case against Crowley for 6 months? Longer, almost a year. Clara took the folder back. I knew they'd come for us eventually. I wanted to be ready. Colt shook his head slowly. You're terrifying. Thank you. That wasn't a compliment. Yes, it was. She smiled. Actually smiled. Small, but real. You just don't realize it yet. And despite everything, the fire, the ambush, the mob at Whitmore Ranch, Colt laughed. Quiet. Genuine. The first time he'd laughed since the wedding. Maybe the first time in years. Clara's smile widened. What? Nothing, just... He looked at her. Really looked. Saw not the girl who'd replaced his bride, but the woman who'd stood beside him through gunfire and lies. Just realizing my luck might be better than I thought, her smile faded, replaced by something softer, more vulnerable. Colt. Gunfire cracked in the distance, from the direction of Mercer Ranch. They both kicked their horses into a dead run. The ranch came into view through the darkness. Flames again. Not the barn this time. The house. Windows glowing orange. Smoke pouring from the roof. Clara screamed something Colt couldn't hear over the pounding hooves. They rode straight into the yard, leaping off their horses before the animals even stopped. The documents, Clara shouted. I left copies in the house. Forget the documents. Those are the only proof we have against Crowley. She ran toward the burning porch. Colt caught her around the waist and hauled her back as part of the roof collapsed inward. You're not going in there. Let me go. Clara, listen to me. He spun her around, gripped her shoulders. I don't care about the documents. I care about you not dying. But without those papers, a voice cut through the night. Looking for these? They both turned. Malcolm Crowley stood near the barn, illuminated by the fire's glow. He held a leather folder, Clara's folder. In his other hand, a torch. You broke into my house, Colt said. Your house was already burning when I arrived. I simply retrieved some misplaced property. Crowley smiled. Property that belongs to the railroad company, I believe. Those are private documents, Clara said. You have no legal right. I have every right. These papers contain confidential railroad business information, stolen information. He opened the folder, made a show of examining the contents. Impressive work, I must admit. Your mother was quite thorough. Pity it won't matter. He dropped the folder into a water trough. Clara lunged forward. Colt held her back. The ink's running, Crowley said pleasantly. Give it a few minutes and those documents will be illegible. No evidence, no proof, no case. He tossed the torch onto the ground and crushed it with his boot. And no marriage once I'm finished. The marriage is legal, Colt said. For now, but I've been speaking with Judge Morrison. Seems there are grounds for annulment after all. Fraud, coercion, take your pick. Crowley brushed dust from his jacket. Evelyn's willing to testify that Clara threatened her, forced her to run. That's a lie! Clara's voice cracked. Doesn't matter if it's true. Matters if people believe it. And they will. Because you're nobody, Clara. Just a desperate girl who schemed her way into a marriage she had no right to. Crowley's smile widened. By next week, this land will be split again. Mercer Ranch, Whitmore Ranch. Separate parcels. Both vulnerable. Both mine. Colt's hand moved toward his gun. I wouldn't. Crowley gestured toward the shadows. 6 men stepped forward, rifles raised. Railroad enforcers, professional gunmen. You're outnumbered and outmatched, Mercer. Walk away now, and you might live to rebuild somewhere else. And if I don't, then you'll burn with your house. Clara pulled free from Colt's grip. She walked straight toward Crowley, ignoring the guns pointed at her. Clara, don't, Colt started. She didn't stop, walked right up to Crowley and looked him in the eye. You think you've won? I know I have. Those weren't the only copies. Her voice was quiet, deadly. I sent duplicates to the territorial marshal 3 days ago. Registered mail. He has everything. Names, dates, evidence of bribery, arson, theft. Everything you've done for the past 2 years. Crowley's smile froze. You're bluffing. Am I? Clara tilted her head. Test me. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Crowley's face. You're lying. You wouldn't. I learned from my mother. She taught me to always have a backup plan. Clara stepped closer. And my backup plan is watching you hang for what you've done. You stupid little... Crowley's hand shot out, grabbed Clara by the throat. Colt drew and fired in one motion. The bullet caught Crowley in the shoulder. He staggered back, releasing Clara. She fell to her knees, gasping. The enforcers opened fire. Colt dove behind the water trough, dragging Clara with him. Bullets tore into wood and metal. Water sprayed everywhere. The horses screamed and scattered. You hit! Colt shouted over the gunfire. Clara shook her head, coughing. Her throat was already bruising. Colt fired back, forcing 2 of the enforcers to take cover. But they were pinned, outnumbered, running out of time and ammunition. We need to move, he said. Where? The barn. More cover. Go! They ran. Bullets kicked up dirt at their heels. Clara stumbled, but kept going. They crashed through the barn door and Colt slammed it shut, dropping the bar across it. It wouldn't hold long. There's a loft, Clara said, already climbing the ladder. We can shoot from above. Colt followed. They reached the loft just as the barn door exploded inward. Enforcers poured in. Clara fired first. 1 man went down, then another. Her hands were steady now, no shaking, just cold precision. Colt fired beside her. How many bullets you have? 6. You? 4. That's not enough. I know. Below, Crowley's voice rang out. Mercer, you're only making this worse. Surrender now and I'll let your wife live. Don't believe him, Clara shouted back. He's going to kill us either way. Smart girl, but wrong. Crowley stepped into view, one hand pressed to his bleeding shoulder. I don't want you dead. I want you discredited, broken. I want everyone to see what happens when small-time ranchers try to fight progress. Progress? Colt's laugh was bitter. You call theft and murder progress? I call it inevitable. The railroad's coming through this valley whether you like it or not. You can sell and profit, or die and lose everything. Your choice. We're not selling. Then you're fools. Crowley signaled to his men. "Burn them out." One of the enforcers grabbed a hay bale and moved toward the lantern hanging near the door. Clara aimed and fired. The bullet hit the lantern's chain. It fell, shattering on the ground, oil spreading everywhere, but not catching fire. The enforcer grabbed another lantern. "We're out of time," Colt said. "I know." "Clara," he looked at her. "If we don't make it, don't. I need to say this. I'm glad it was you. At that altar. I'm glad you were the one who stood there." Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. "Colt." Hoofbeats. Dozens of them. Thunder rolling toward the ranch. Everyone froze. The barn doors burst open fully. But it wasn't more enforcers. It was ranch hands. Whitmore hands. Mercer's few remaining men. Even townspeople. Led by someone Colt never expected to see. Sheriff Hayes, with a dozen armed deputies. "Drop your weapons!" Hayes shouted. "All of you, railroad men, now!" The enforcers hesitated, looking to Crowley. Crowley's face twisted. "You have no authority here, Sheriff. This is railroad business. This is murder, arson, and attempted murder of citizens under my protection." Hayes drew his own gun. "I said drop your weapons or I start shooting." Slowly, the enforcers complied. Rifles clattered to the ground. Hayes gestured to his deputies. "Arrest them, all of them, including Crowley." "You can't," Crowley started. "I can and I am. We have testimony from Garrett. He confessed everything. The fires, the sabotage, your orders to drive the Mercers and Whitmore off their land." Hayes smiled grimly. "He's singing like a canary to save his own neck." Crowley's face went white. "Garrett's a liar. He's a coward who knows when he's beaten, just like you." Hayes nodded to a deputy. "Take him." As they dragged Crowley away, he screamed at Clara. "This isn't over. The railroad will destroy you. You're nothing. Nobody." Clara stood at the loft railing, looking down at him. Her voice was calm, clear. "I'm Clara Mercer, and I just beat you." Crowley's screams faded as they hauled him toward town. Colt touched Clara's arm. "You okay?" She turned to him, and suddenly the strength crumbled. She started shaking, not from fear, from release, from everything she'd been holding in. Colt pulled her against his chest and held her while she trembled. She didn't cry, just shook like a leaf in a storm. "It's over," he said quietly. "You're safe. The house. We'll rebuild. The documents in the trough. You sent copies to the marshal, remember? We're fine." She pulled back enough to look at him. "I didn't actually send copies." Colt blinked. "What?" "I was bluffing. Those were the only documents, the ones Crowley destroyed." She laughed weakly. "I'd gambled everything on a lie. That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen. I had to. He was going to kill us. And it worked." Colt shook his head in disbelief. "You lied to a man pointing guns at us, and it actually worked. I learned from the best. My mother could bluff a full house with a pair of twos." Clara's smile faded. "But without those documents, how do we prove—" "We have Garrett's testimony now, and Crowley shot at us in front of witnesses." Colt gestured to the crowd below. "We have enough." Sheriff Hayes called up from below. "You two planning to come down anytime soon?" They climbed down the ladder. The barn was packed with people now. Familiar faces. Some Colt trusted, some he didn't. But they'd all come. Luis, one of the Whitmore hands, stepped forward. "Miss Clara, Mrs. Mercer, I'm sorry. We should have stood with you from the start. Should have seen what Garrett was doing." "Why didn't you?" Clara asked. "Scared, confused, didn't know who to trust." Luis looked at his boots. and didn't think a woman could run a ranch. But you're here now. Your sister came, Evelyn. She told everyone the truth, that she lied, that Crowley paid her to say those things about you. She's at Whitmore Ranch now, telling your father everything before he—" Louise stopped. "You should go see him, while you still can." Clara's breath hitched. "He's still alive?" "Barely, but he's asking for you." She looked at Colt. "I need to—" "Go. I'll handle things here." "The house—" "Can wait. Your father can't." He squeezed her hand. "I'll be here when you get back." Clara nodded and headed for her horse, then stopped, turned back, walked to Colt and kissed him. Quick, fierce, in front of everyone. When she pulled away, his eyes were wide. "Thank you," she said, "for choosing me." Then she was gone, riding into the night. The crowd erupted in whispers and mutters. Colt ignored them all, just touched his lips where hers had been, and tried to remember how to breathe. Sheriff Hayes clapped him on the shoulder. "You married yourself a hell of a woman, Mercer." "Yeah," Colt said quietly. "I did." Clara reached Whitmore Ranch as dawn broke. The house was quiet. Too quiet. She dismounted and walked inside like she was moving through water. Evelyn met her at the stairs. Her sister's face was swollen from crying, eyes red-rimmed. "He's upstairs," Evelyn whispered. "He's been waiting for you." Clara wanted to ask why Evelyn had come back, why she'd told the truth, but there was no time. She climbed the stairs. Her father's room smelled like death, medicine and sweat, and something deeper, darker. Thomas Whitmore lay in bed, skin gray, breathing shallow. His eyes opened when Clara sat beside him. "Clara," he rasped. "I'm here, Father. I was wrong." Each word cost him. "About everything. About you." "Don't let me finish, please." He coughed, and Clara helped him drink water. "Your mother, she saw what you were, what you could be. I was too drunk to see it, too proud, too stupid." "Father, you don't have to." "I do, because I'm dying, and I need you to know." His hand found hers, weak, trembling. "You were always the strong one, the smart one. I should have trusted you, should have listened. Instead, I drank and signed papers and let that bastard Crowley almost destroy everything your mother built." "It's okay." "It's not okay, but maybe you can forgive me anyway." Clara's throat closed. "There's nothing to forgive." "Liar." He smiled weakly. "You're a terrible liar. Always were. Too honest for your own good." "I'm working on it." He laughed. It turned into a cough. When it passed, he gripped her hand tighter. "Your husband, he good to you?" "Yes." "You love him?" Clara hesitated. I don't know yet." "But you could." "Maybe. Yes." "Good. Your mother and I, we had an arranged marriage too. Hated each other the first year. But she was patient, and I was stubborn. And somehow, it worked." His eyes drifted closed. "Be patient with him, Clara, and make him be patient with you." "I will." "And the ranch, both ranches now, you'll take care of them?" "I will." "Good girl, you always were." His breathing slowed, deepened. "Your mother would be so proud." Clara waited for him to say more, but he was done, drifting into sleep that would probably become something else soon. She sat with him until Evelyn appeared in the doorway. "Clara," her sister said softly, "we should talk." Clara stood, followed Evelyn downstairs to the parlor. They sat across from each other, the same room where they'd played as children, where their mother had taught them to read, where everything had fallen apart. "I'm sorry," Evelyn said, "for all of it, for running, for lying, for letting Crowley use me." "Why did you?" "Because I was angry, hurt, embarrassed. I thought if I could make you look bad, I'd look better by comparison." Evelyn's voice broke. "I was jealous, Clara, of how strong you are, how capable. I've always been the pretty one, the charming one. But you're the one people actually need." "That's not true." "It is, and I hated you for it. Until I saw you last night. Saw you stand up to Crowley. Saw you risk everything for people who didn't even believe in you." Evelyn wiped her eyes. "I'm not strong like you. I never will be. But I can at least tell the truth. So I did. I told everyone I lied, that you never forced me to do anything, that you saved us all." Clara didn't know what to say. Her relationship with Evelyn had always been complicated. Love and resentment tangled together. "Thank you," she finally managed. "It's not enough. I know it's not. But it's all I have." Evelyn stood. "I'm leaving Silver Creek, going east, to my mother's sister in Philadelphia. Start over somewhere no one knows me." "Evelyn, it's better this way, for both of us." She moved toward the door, then paused. "He really chose you, didn't he, Colt? He could have walked away, could have had me, but he chose you." "He chose the contract." "No, I saw how he looked at you, how he stood beside you." Evelyn smiled sadly. "He chose you, Clara. Don't waste that." Then she was gone. Clara sat alone in the parlor as sunlight filled the room. Upstairs, her father was dying. Her sister was leaving. The house she'd grown up in would probably be sold or absorbed into the merged ranch. Everything was changing. Everything had changed. And somehow, impossibly, she was still standing. She rose and walked outside. The ranch hands were working despite everything. Feeding animals, mending fences, doing what needed to be done. Clara mounted her horse and rode back to Mercer Ranch. Back to the man who'd fired a gun to protect her, who'd held her while she shook, who'd kissed her in front of the whole town and didn't care who saw. Back home. Because that's what it was now, she realized. Not Mercer Ranch, not Whitmore Ranch. Home. When Clara rode into the yard, Colt was standing in the ruins of their house, just standing there, staring at what was left. Charred beams, collapsed walls, everything they owned turned to ash. She dismounted and walked to him. Didn't say anything, just stood beside him. "How's your father?" he asked. "Dying. Maybe hours. Maybe days. Hard to tell." "You should have stayed." "No, I needed to be here." She looked at the destruction. "We can rebuild." "With what money? The cattle we have left won't bring in enough to cover winter feed, let alone construction." "Then we sell some land, just enough to—" "No." Colt's voice was firm. "We don't sell. That's what Crowley wanted. That's what the railroad's still hoping for. We hold the line." "Colt, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. This land is ours, yours and mine. Nobody takes it from us." He turned to face her. "Your mother died protecting it. Your father's dying because he couldn't. I'm not letting their sacrifices mean nothing." Clara's chest tightened. "Then what do we do?" "We fight. We rebuild. We survive. He reached for her hand. Together. Before she could respond, hoofbeats approached. Multiple riders. Clara's hand went to her rifle, but Colt stopped her. "It's okay. I know them." 5 ranchers rode into the yard. Neighbors Colt had dealt with over the years. Hard men with weathered faces and cautious eyes. The lead rider, a man named Jacob Stone, dismounted. "Mercer, Mrs. Mercer, heard about what happened." "News travels fast," Colt said. "Sheriff Hayes made sure of it. Told everyone how Crowley tried to burn you out, how your wife faced down armed men with nothing but nerve." Stone looked at Clara with something like respect. "Also heard about the land merger. That true?" "Yes." "So you control both Whitmore and Mercer parcels now?" "We do." Stone exchanged glances with the other ranchers. "That makes you the largest landholders in the valley, by a significant margin." Colt's eyes narrowed. "What's your point?" "Point is, the railroad's not done. Crowley's locked up, but the company will send someone else. Someone worse, probably. And when they do, they'll come after all of us, one by one, until we break or sell. So we need to stand together, form a cattlemen's association, pool resources, present a united front." Stone shifted his weight. "And we want you two to leave it." Silence. Clara spoke first. "Why us?" "Because you beat them once. Because you didn't run when you had the chance. And because—" Stone hesitated. "Because folks respect what you did. Both of you. Standing up when it mattered." "Half the town called her a witch 3 days ago," Colt said flatly. "Half the town was scared and stupid. The other half knows better now." Stone pulled a folded document from his jacket. "This is a mutual defense agreement. 6 ranches, including yours. We share information, watch each other's land, fight off railroad pressure together. But it only works if someone coordinates it. Someone smart. Someone tough." He handed the document to Clara. She read it quickly, scanning the terms. It was solid, fair, exactly what they needed. "What happens to the land if we refuse?" she asked. "Then we all get picked off separately, and the railroad wins." Stone's voice was grim. "This valley needs leaders. You two are it, whether you want to be or not." Colt looked at Clara. "What do you think?" She thought about her mother, who'd tried to build something lasting. About her father, who'd let it crumble. About Evelyn, who'd run when things got hard. About herself, standing at that altar, choosing to fight instead of flee. "I think we accept," she said. "On one condition." "What condition?" "Equal partnership. Any decisions affecting the association require both our signatures, not just Colt's. Mine too." The ranchers shifted uncomfortably. One muttered something under his breath. Stone silenced them with a look. "That's not how things are usually done." "It's how we do things," Clara said firmly, "or there's no deal." Stone studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled, small, but genuine. "Your mother would have demanded the same thing. She was tough as nails." He extended his hand. "Equal partnership. You have my word." Clara shook his hand, then Colt's. The Cattlemen's Association was born in the ashes of a burned house, sealed with a handshake and a promise. After the ranchers left, Colt turned to Clara. "You know what you just did?" "Started a war with every traditional cattleman in Montana Territory?" "Probably. But also," he smiled, actually smiled, "also proved you're smarter than all of them combined." "Flattery doesn't rebuild houses." "No, but this does." He pulled a pouch from his pocket and poured coins into his hand. Gold coins. Lots of them. Clara's eyes widened. "Where did you get that?" Been saving for years. Didn't trust banks. Kept it buried in a tin under the barn floor. He poured the coins back into the pouch. It's enough to rebuild the house and buy winter feed, if we're careful. Colt, that's your life savings. It's our life savings, and I'd rather spend it on a future than watch it sit in the ground. He handed her the pouch. Besides, you're better with numbers than I am. You handle the money. She stared at the pouch in her hands. The weight of it. The trust. You're serious? Dead serious. This ranch is as much yours as mine. The money should be too. Clara's throat tightened. Why are you doing this? Doing what? Trusting me, treating me like I matter. Colt stepped closer. Close enough she could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. Because you do matter. You've mattered since the moment you told me the truth at that altar. Maybe before that. Before? I keep thinking, if it had been Evelyn standing there, would I have said yes? He shook his head. I don't think I would have. She's beautiful, charming, everything a man's supposed to want. But she's not what? Not you. He touched her face, gentle. You're fierce and honest, and you don't back down from anything. You shoot straight, think faster than anyone I've ever met. And you kissed me in front of the whole damn town like you meant it. Clara's breath caught. I did mean it. Yeah? Yeah. He kissed her then, slow and deep, and nothing like their hasty kiss in the barn. This one tasted like smoke and promises, and something neither of them had words for yet. When they pulled apart, Clara was shaking again, but not from fear this time. We should rebuild the house, she said breathlessly. We should. And check the cattle. Definitely. And I need to ride back to Whitmore Ranch before... Her voice broke. Before my father dies. Colt's expression softened. Then go. I'll start clearing the debris. We'll rebuild together when you get back. She nodded, started toward her horse, then stopped. Colt? Yeah? That first day, when you said you'd figure out how to survive a marriage you never wanted? I remember. Did you figure it out? He smiled. Yeah, I just stopped trying to survive it and started trying to live it. Thomas Whitmore died 3 days later, with Clara holding his hand. He went quietly, whispering Clara's mother's name at the end. The funeral was small. Just Clara, a few loyal ranch hands, and the preacher. Evelyn had already left for Philadelphia by then. Colt stood beside Clara through the whole thing. Didn't say much, just stayed close. When they lowered the coffin into the ground beside her mother's grave, he put his arm around her shoulders and held her while she cried. Afterward, back at what remained of Mercer Ranch, Clara found a letter in her father's things, addressed to her, dated 2 weeks before the wedding. She opened it with shaking hands. Clara, if you're reading this, I'm dead and you're dealing with the mess I left behind. I'm sorry. For the drinking, for failing you, for not being the father your mother wanted me to be. But I need you to know something. The marriage contract I signed with Colt Mercer, I knew what I was doing. I knew it would probably be you standing at that altar, not Evelyn. Your sister's too soft for frontier life, too much like me. But you're like your mother, strong enough to do what needs doing. I'm giving you what she built, the land, the legacy, the fight. Don't let the railroad take it. Don't let anyone tell you you're not capable. You're more capable than any man I've ever known. Make me proud, daughter. Live the life I couldn't. Your father, Thomas Whitmore. Clara read it 3 times, then showed it to Colt. He read it in silence, then handed it back. He knew. He knew. You weren't a replacement. You were always his first choice. Clara folded the letter carefully. He could have told me. Would it have made a difference? She thought about that, about the guilt she'd carried, thinking she'd stolen her sister's future, about the weight of believing she'd forced her way into a marriage that should have been Evelyn's. Yes, she said quietly. It would have. Well, now you know. Colt took her hand. And we move forward from here. The house took 2 months to rebuild. Colt and Clara worked side by side, hammering and sawing and arguing about where things should go. The Cattlemen's Association sent help, men and materials. Even some of the townspeople who'd called Clara a witch showed up with supplies, shamefaced but sincere. By the time the first snow fell, they had walls and a roof and a working fireplace. It wasn't fancy, but it was solid, real, theirs. On the first night in the new house, they stood in the kitchen, the one room that was completely finished, and looked around. It's smaller than the old house, Clara said. Easier to heat. And the porch isn't level. I'll fix it in spring. The bedroom door sticks. I'll plane it down tomorrow. She smiled. It's perfect. Liar. Maybe, but it's ours. That makes it perfect enough. Colt pulled her close. I've been thinking. Dangerous. You keep saying that. Because it's true. She rested her head against his chest. What have you been thinking about? The contract, the one your father and I signed. It merged the land through marriage, but it didn't specify much else. No division of labor, no decision-making structure, nothing about... He hesitated. About what? About what kind of marriage this actually is. Clara pulled back to look at him. What are you asking? I'm asking if you want to rewrite the terms. Make this a real partnership. Not just legally, but... He struggled for words. But actually. As opposed to what we have now? What we have now is good, but it started as a business arrangement. I want more than that. His hands came up to frame her face. I want you to be my wife. Not because of land or contracts or railroads, but because I choose you. Every day. The way you chose me when you stood at that altar. Clara's eyes filled. Colt Mercer, are you proposing to your own wife? I guess I am. That's ridiculous. Probably. And completely unnecessary. I know, and I love you for it. The words came out before she could stop them. Natural, true, inevitable. Colt's breath caught. Say that again. I love you. I've loved you since the night you held me while the barn burned. Maybe before that. Maybe from the moment you said yes, even though I wasn't who you expected. She smiled through tears. I love you, Colt Mercer. And if you're asking me to choose this marriage again, I am. Then yes, 1,000 times, yes. He kissed her like it was their first kiss, and their last kiss, all at once. Like she was precious, chosen, his. When they finally broke apart, the kitchen was cold and the house was drafty, and the snow was starting to fall outside. But neither of them noticed, because they were home. 3 years later, Clara Mercer stood on the porch of their rebuilt ranch house, watching the sun set over land that stretched farther than she could see. Whitmore Mercer Ranch, the largest holding in Silver Creek Valley, a symbol of resistance against railroad expansion and a model for cooperative ranching. Colt rode up from the south pasture, dismounting with the easy grace of a man who'd spent his whole life on horseback. Their daughter, 2 years old, dark-haired and fierce like her mother, ran to meet him, shrieking with delight. He swept her up and carried her to the porch, setting her down so she could chase the barn cat. How many today? Clara asked. 15, all healthy. Good stock. He leaned against the railing beside her. The association meeting's tomorrow. You ready? As ready as I'll ever be, she smiled. Stone's going to fight me on the water rights proposal. He fights you on everything, and I win anyway. Usually. She elbowed him. Always. Fine, always. He wrapped his arm around her waist. You know, sometimes I think about that day, the wedding, when you lifted the veil and everything changed. Regret it? Not even a little bit. He turned her to face him. You know what I regret? What? Wasting even one day being angry that you weren't Evelyn. Because you're everything I never knew I needed. Clara touched his face. You say the sweetest things for a man who shoots first and asks questions later. Learn from the best. Their daughter ran back, demanding to be picked up. They each took one of her hands and lifted her between them, swinging her while she squealed. Later that night, after their daughter was asleep and the ranch was quiet, Clara and Colt sat on the porch watching the stars. The same stars that had watched them fight and bleed and build. The same stars that had seen a desperate woman in a wedding dress make an impossible choice. Do you ever wonder how things would have turned out if Evelyn hadn't run? Clara asked. Sometimes, but not often. Why not? Because it doesn't matter. She ran, you stayed, and that's the only version of this story I care about. He took her hand. The version where I got you. Clara leaned against his shoulder. I was terrified that day, standing at that altar, convinced you'd walk away. I almost did. I know. But I didn't. No, you didn't. She laced her fingers through his. You chose me. One glance, and you chose me. Not just one glance, Colt said quietly. Every single day since. And that, Clara thought, was the truth neither contracts, nor land, nor railroads could change. He'd chosen her in the chapel when he could have walked away. Chosen her in the canyon under gunfire. Chosen her in the barn while flames surrounded them. Chosen her while rebuilding from ash. Chosen her not once, but every single day after. The same way she'd chosen him. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Because love wasn't about the altar, or the vows, or the contract. It was about standing together when everything burned, and choosing each other anyway. She took her sister's place in an arranged marriage, and the cowboy saw past expectations to the woman beneath. One glance changed everything, but it was every choice after that made them unbreakable.